Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Gerstenzang. I'm the board president of the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York. I'm also a foster adoptive parent, a kinship parent, and as I learned recently, the great-granddaughter of a Jewish man who was left with and adopted by two Irish sisters. I'm so thrilled that you're here with us tonight. It is going to be a really terrific evening. You're going to see the full range of what we do at the coalition, starting with large-scale advocacy in the form of a conversation with our wonderful pro bono attorneys, and followed by personal stories illustrating the very human scale of support and connection that we provide. In 2009, we began wondering why the state of New York had never complied with federal law to reimburse foster parents adequately for the costs of the children in their care. We worried about this because we knew that our state did not have a robust foster parent or robust enough population of foster families, and that many children did not and still do not have families, so they remain in institutions, over 3,000 children in New York. We had the very good fortune to be connected to Morrison Foerster to pursue this case, and are very happy to have our attorneys with us tonight. So I'm wondering if Jennifer and Adam might just take a minute to introduce themselves, and then we're going to have a few questions. Of course.
So I'm Jennifer Brown. Is that on? It seems like it is. Okay. I'm Jennifer Brown. I'm the senior pro bono counsel at Morrison and Foerster. Sadly for me, I don't actually do much of the legal work. My main role is to take in matters and to find lawyers, try to get our lawyers interested in taking them on, and work with the organizations that refer the matters to us.
My name is Adam Hunt. I'm of counsel at Morrison and Foerster, and this case that we're going to talk about today is one of the first cases that I was staffed on when I started in 2010, fresh out of law school. So this has been with me my whole career. It's been an incredible experience. Can't wait to tell you about it.
So I just want to say that Adam, I believe, met his wife, got married to her, and had two children during the time of this case. So we've, yeah. So I just want to start with, why did you take on our case? I'm sure you have many options to choose from.
So that question is for me, I think. So the way that I'm not entirely sure how we got the case initially, because I thought I knew, and then I learned there was another aspect. So I'll tell you both. There is an organization called New York Lawyers for the Public Interest that, among other things, they bring litigation themselves, and they also refer cases to law firms for representation. And we have a long-standing relationship with this group. And I do believe that they referred the case to us. However, Morrison and Foerster had already brought a case in California under the Federal Child Welfare Act to seek increased reimbursements for foster parents there. And that case it started in 2007. So I think that's a couple of years earlier than you just said, 2009. So that case had won already a ruling that the federal law that lays out the particular expenses that are supposed to be covered by foster parent reimbursements, that could be the basis for a lawsuit saying that a state's rates were not adequate. And that was the legal basis for the suit. And Adam's going to tell you a lot more about that. But we had brought that case in California in 2007. So I think what happened when, maybe that's why New York Lawyers for the Public Interest called us in the first place. I do remember working with an associate who's long gone from the firm, who was writing that initial complaint for this case, and basically taking the California case and doing a, search and replace and putting in New York. So that is how we got started. And I'll talk a little more later about some of the other litigation that was related, but I think that's how we got involved. And our firm has done a lot of work over the years for on behalf of children. I may have had a little bit of extra interest in the case myself because long before I was a lawyer, I was a policy analyst for the New York City Comptroller's Office. This is back when the comptroller had a policy, the Board of Estimate days for, and those few of you who may know New York City politics, when the comptroller really had a strong policy influence in the city. And I happened to have been assigned the task of investigating the situation of what were then known as border babies, which were children who were boarding in hospitals because the city had decided not to send them home with their parents. So I did some research on that way back when. So foster care has been an interest of mine ever since. So maybe that was helped me be especially receptive when I got that call.
So maybe Adam, you could talk about what the key legal issues were in our case.
Sure. So the framework for the case was really simple. The rates are too low. The Federal Child Welfare Act says that states have to cover certain categories, food, clothing, really basic items. And the statute uses mandatory language. It says you shall do this. There doesn't seem to be any choice for the states in this. There was a study coming out of the University of Maryland that calculated the shortfall for New York's rates and the rates in lots of other states. It was what we used in California when lawyers from our firm brought that case. So we thought this would just be a matter of going to court, telling them that New York was paying, pennies on the dollar essentially, and getting a ruling. It wasn't quite as easy as we thought it was going to be. There is a legal doctrine called a private right of action. And it's a way that courts interpret statutes to figure out if you can actually bring a lawsuit in the first place to enforce what you think is, something that's mandatory. Unfortunately, there was a federal appellate court that covers the middle of the country, and they held that the Child Welfare Act doesn't provide for a private right of action. So it meant right out of the gate, even if we thought the rates were too low, and even if the statute says you have to pay them, no one could sue to enforce that. It was just a matter of, federal regulatory agencies figuring out what the problem is and maybe getting around to solving it. So that was in 2012, I think, when the court in our case learned about this appellate ruling, latched onto it, and used it as an excuse to toss the case. So we appealed. We went up to the Second Circuit, which is the appellate court that covers New York, and successfully argued that the statute does confer a private right of action. There was another twist that first time up to the Second Circuit, because one of the judges on the panel decided maybe the coalition isn't the right party to be bringing this lawsuit. Maybe individual foster parents should be doing it. So they sent the case back down to the trial court, and the trial court had to figure out whether the coalition itself had suffered any injury that would give it standing to sue under the Child Welfare Act. Sarah bravely volunteered to be our star witness when we had an evidentiary
Very exciting.
She did a terrific job and explains all the work that the coalition has to do because the rates are so low. It's advocacy work, the support that it provides for foster parents. And the court found that that was a sufficient injury for the coalition to be bringing this lawsuit. We go back up to the appellate court one more time because the state doesn't let anything go. And we won there, which was great. Unfortunately, the state did not accept defeat. So they tried to bring a petition to the US Supreme Court. And at the time, there was a split between different federal appellate courts on this issue of whether there's a private right of action. And typically, the US Supreme Court likes those kinds of cases. They want to resolve these differences among the federal courts across the country. So you have to convince the Supreme Court not to hear this because you won and you don't want them getting anywhere near it, especially with the current composition of the court. So that was another hurdle that we managed to get through, thankfully. And then after that, we went through a lengthy settlement process.
Thank you. So I don't know, maybe you've already answered this question, but what would you say is the most challenging part of the case, other than endurance?
I think, yeah, it was definitely, it was a marathon. There's that adage that the wheels of justice turn slowly. This was an unfortunate example of that, but we did get to the right place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there was no retroactive aspect to this case. So, there were many families who were not adequately reimbursed. And in a sense, what we would often talk about is that children who were being removed from their families, and then they were actually being neglected by the state because they're being put in families where they're not, being paid for, reimbursed for food, clothing, shelter, and very basic things. So I know we have a very short amount of time tonight, but I know that this settlement impacted literally tens of thousands of children because it was not only impacting children who are in foster care, but also adoptive families as well. And so tens of thousands of children and families. What would you say actually the financial impact was?
So the financial impact is a little difficult to calculate because I think, as most folks know, there are different rate tiers for different age groups, and then the rates vary between upstate New York and the metro area. But overall, the rates went up under the settlement by between 20 to 45%. And I did a little back of the envelope math
Great.
today. So the average monthly increase was about $300 across all age groups. So if you multiply that times I think in 2020, there were 3,600 kids in foster homes in just the metro area.
Right.
So that's about $13 million just for that 1 year for the metro area.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, right. This is why they were fighting it so hard. It's a lot of money.
And the settlement requires that they adjust the rates for inflation every year, which is particularly important right now because
yes,
we're seeing the cost of goods go up.
Right. I don't know if we could have done any better if we'd actually won in court than we did in our settlement. So it was extremely gratifying, even if it was in the middle of a pandemic. So we're very happy to have this opportunity to celebrate this tonight. And I want to actually just bring our executive director of the coalition, Pat O'Brien, up to just give you both an award, I just want to read for everyone. The award says the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York presents this award to Adam Hunt, Brian Matsui, he's from Washington. He was active in the Supreme Court work, and Jennifer Brown of Morrison Foerster in recognition of their extraordinary pro bono work. Our December 2021 settlement not only ensured a methodology for reimbursing foster families, but also set the bar for respectful and humane treatment of all of our state citizens, and especially those who are most vulnerable. On behalf of all foster, adoptive, and kinship families, we thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for letting me.
Okay. And now it's over to Pat.
All right. We are transitioning over to our evening's events of storytelling. So Barbara, whatever we have to do to arrange, we're going to take 5-minute break. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being in the room this evening. You are in for a treat. You're going to hear about 6 wonderful stories. and you're going to meet the creator of the concept of Every Family's Got One. And I'm turning it over to Barbara Harrell right now to introduce our 6 speakers to you all. Barbara?
Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness, I just heard that it took 12 years for that lawsuit, for that was amazing, incredible. Hi, I am Barbara Harrell, and I am a mom by way of domestic adoption. And I've been writing and producing storytelling shows for almost 10 years now. And this is our second show with the Coalition. And this year's theme is How the Coalition Changed My Life. And I mean, you're just going to be in for such a treat. It's such an important organization for our New York families. And I am, for one, thrilled to be here and thrilled to have you all here. There is really no better way, in my opinion, to understand what a person is experiencing than by hearing their story. Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of passing along information. You know, think about the cave people sitting in front of the fire, talking about that tiger that ate Uncle Bob, even though I'm sure he deserved it. The stories we tell are a way of connecting all of us. And that is my hope for you this evening, that you will feel connected to us, to the Coalition, from these amazing stories that you're going to hear tonight. So let's begin. Our first storyteller is Kathy Payton. She is a single mom who believed for a very long time that she had a picture-perfect adoption. Really, is there such a thing? We're gonna find out. So please welcome to the mic, Kathy sharing her story, Picture Perfect. There she is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Payton, and I'm very happy to be here tonight sharing this space with you. And I'm grateful that you are here to listen to my story. So as you know, my story is called Picture Perfect. And when Pat from the Coalition asked me to be a storyteller, I said yes right away because I like Pat. And I'm very proud to be part of the Coalition, and they've done a great deal of good for me and my family. And so I'm grateful to be here tonight. Thank you so much. My story begins 14 years ago. I was 40 years old. I was single. I was a school teacher, and I was surrounded by children every day, all day. And the one thing that I think was missing from my life is I wasn't a mom. I always wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have children in my life. I wanted to have children in my home. And I thought that that would complete my life. So I talked it over with my family and my close network of supportive friends. And I thought, you know, I could probably do this. Maybe adoption could really be a good experience for me. So for some reason or another, I was drawn to international adoption. And before long, I was talking to people at an adoption agency about a program in Colombia where they have sibling groups. And at this point, I'm getting very excited, and I'm thinking, you know, I could potentially have more than one child and do everything in one shot. And I like to do that. I like to get everything done, one and done. So the paperwork, it took a long time. It took around 3 years to complete. And I remember it was around this time, around, you know, Veterans Day. And it was 2009. I was in my car and I got a phone call from the agency. And they said, you know, we found a sibling group for you. So I immediately, before I crashed, I just pulled over, and I was so excited to hear all about this. My heart was racing. And the woman on the phone said, I have a girl named Michelle. She's 10 years old and she's got a little brother who's 3. And I was like, wow, and his name is Lewis. And I just couldn't believe it. And she said, I want you to go home, talk to your family. I really want you to think about this because once you see these pictures, you're going to fall in love. So I did talk to my family. I did think about it and I did fall in love when I saw the pictures. And I took their picture and I still have it on paper. I printed it from my computer and I put it in my mirror in my room. And I looked at it every day until I got them. So now at this point, I'm traveling to Colombia. I am trying desperately to speak Spanish. I didn't have a lot of time to learn and I tried. And so when I got to Colombia, I knew I would be there for 5 weeks. I began studying Spanish and I tried talking and, Barbara says to me, Kathy, think of a typical phrase you would use. And the only phrase I could think of was relajarse. And I think it means relax. And that's all I kept saying on this journey to myself, to my kids. So at this point, my family is excited. My friends at work are so excited. They throw me a baby shower. It feels terrific. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 and I feel like I'm part of a group that I wasn't part of before. It's like the mom group. So I was just so thrilled. So now it's March. So from November to March, I'm like dying because think about something you wanted to have your whole life. And that's a long time after you get that beautiful picture and you put it up in your room. So from November to March, I'm getting ready. I'm packing, I'm doing all kinds of things. And the time comes and I'm going to the airport. I don't want my father to take me to the airport because he's crying, because he's excited and he's nervous that his girl's going to Colombia. And I'm not much of a traveler. And now I'm going across the world to get my kids. So there's a hurricane on Long Island and my flight is canceled and I had an evening flight. And I'm like, oh gosh. So my girlfriend and her husband take me back to their house and I'm having difficulty getting in touch with my liaison. What I learned is in Colombia, they don't get very excited. They're very calm, easygoing. Oh, you forgot, you missed your plane. It's okay. They kind of think differently. So it didn't really faze them. And it fazed me though. So now I'm getting ready. I get on a flight the next day. And when I arrive in Colombia, they're happy that I'm finally there. And they tell me, you're going to meet the kids today. The other families have been here for a couple of days. They're relaxed. They've exchanged their money. And I remember we got back to the hotel. I was in a van and the gentleman's like, well, this is your room. And he threw my gigantic bags in the room. And he's like, we have to leave now. And thankfully I changed my clothes in the bathroom at the airport. So I was pretty much ready to go. So there was no time to do anything. And we went right to get the kids. And I said, all right, again, I'm going with the flow. So in my mind, I dreamed of this moment when I would meet my kids. And I was thinking, wow, Lewis will probably run to me. He's little, right? He'll be all excited. And it was on the contrary, quite different. Michelle was the one to come up to me and to connect. And Lewis was very standoffish. So I was just so excited and delighted. And I have that moment on tape and it makes me cry every time I see it. There was another family with us, and they were from Kansas, husband and wife, and they were adopting 2 of my kids' siblings, 2 brothers. It was heartbreaking. I thought that the kids couldn't really all be together and get adopted together, and that wasn't really feasible. And they were in different foster care homes anyway. And we all stayed together. Our hotel rooms were next to each other, and we experienced all the ongoings that we needed to do, the sightseeing and the legal work that we needed to complete. So we did it together. So I felt like I had a support system there and I thought it was wonderful. And to this day, we still stay in contact and call and celebrate birthdays and things like that. So now it's finally time to come home. And now it's just me, Lewis, and Michelle. And before that, it was a lot of people. There were a lot of women in the hotel helping us. there were liaisons and like I said, this other family. So now it's just us. And I'm just amazed at how well we're doing. And much like my departure from New York, our departure from Columbia was not exactly smooth. The plane was having all kinds of difficulties and it was grounded. So, of course, I have an evening flight and I'm by myself with 2 kids that don't speak English and I'm in a Colombian airport. So we're sitting on the floor and we're all just kind of biding time. And I was amazed. I'm looking at them and they're on a floor just like here. And I'm saying, wow, they trust me. They're willing to get on a plane with me. They only know me for 5 weeks. And these things stick with me. I was very amazed. So we got on our way and we got back home and we were in the airport. And of course, we had so much luggage to carry. And my family was there. And my little girl, Michelle, at the time, she didn't even know my dad. She just went up to him and gave him a hug. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. My dad said we looked like refugees. I said, I felt like one. You know, we go home, we settle in, we follow up with our social worker, we do our checkups and our check-ins and everything's doing great. We get acclimated, kids are in school, I'm back at work, we're doing birthday parties and all kinds of fun kid stuff and I couldn't be happier. The agency that I dealt with did prep me and I did some work around what could happen with kids when they transition, especially from foster care into adoptive homes. And I didn't really think about that tremendous loss of family and grief because I was so excited and so happy to have a family. And I didn't realize how much they sacrificed in terms of sacrificing their own, I guess, longing for wanting to be with their families and their culture and their siblings too. Kansas is far from New York, right? It was a difficult time. It was fun. It was wonderful. And then we transitioned to a more difficult time. Trauma hits with a heaping side of adolescence. And all of these feelings of grief and pain that were on the back burner, they begin to boil over at this point. Nobody's happy really right now. I'm not happy. My kids are not happy. And it was difficult. My daughter, she has an entire story set aside from the story that I have of her, the beautiful story of me becoming a mom and the kids finding a forever home. And I realized that that we as a family, we have to somehow begin processing the story of her whole life that began in Columbia. And at this point, I really don't know how to do that. And I never really felt as alone as I did then. And it was scary for me. I can't help but think that before adopting the kids, I had all the help I wanted. Again, my friends are excited. They're throwing me baby showers. They're celebrating me becoming a mom and our little family. I even had help in Columbia, but it's not the help really that a mom needs, not at this time, not at this stage in the game. And I heard about the coalition and I reached out. And a woman named Andrea, she had done some home visits with me and I had felt help on an extraordinary level. And just being able to share some of my experiences with someone who understands was very comforting. I really didn't know anyone in my circle of friends or family who had adopted, let alone adopted kids from another country. So to find a person who knows what you're going through, it really helps you to feel safe. And it helps you to feel vulnerable in sharing what you are dealing with day in and day out. So Andrea and other people at the coalition, such as Danielle and Chester, they really helped me through a lot of things and they introduced me to a lot of resources like my Saturday support group. We talked about therapeutic parenting, social work, family sessions, and self-care. And I took a little reprieve for my Saturday group to do other things. And They are an extraordinarily wonderful sense of support for me, and I can't thank them enough. So they helped me stop feeling like I was in a hamster wheel of just going through a difficult time and difficult experiences. So today my daughter is 24 and my son is 17, and we're still on this journey together. And we go back now and we're able to do redos. We're able to listen better together. My daughter just the other day is like, Mom, I'm not really feeling very validated right now. And, believe me, the term validated and just the sense of using it, it doesn't come very easily. There's a lot of training behind that and a lot of trust behind that. And I think I was really naive to think that we were just all so happy because we all needed so much help from the outside, And from the outside looking in, everything looked really very beautiful, but there was a lot of work that had to go into that. Now I understand that there's beauty in healing. There's beauty in repair, and it's never too late to make repairs. And as I can't speak about being a foster parent because I'm not, but people in my group were foster parents. So foster parents and adopted parents, I can say that there's a lot of repairs that have to be done along the way, along the learning curve. And I would never change my decision to be an adoptive mom. I am so happy. I am meant to be with Michelle and Lewis, and I love them very much. And I realize now that there is beauty in healing. And the other day, it was yesterday, I was telling Barbara, I was cooking in the kitchen and my daughter was behind me and she said, Mom, she's listening, as a matter of fact, she's listening to me right now. And she said, I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing pretty good. So thank you for hearing my story, for being with me. And thank you to the coalition. Thank you.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, our next story is from Thomasine Oliphant, who grew up in an informal kinship family arrangement. Now, what does that mean? Well, we are going to find out exactly what it means. Here is Thomasine. She's going to explain it all with her story, Role Switch. Thomasine.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say that it's a real honor and privilege to be here. And I appreciate the coalition so much for just in my adult life, all the support they've provided for me. And this is actually the very first time that I'm sharing my story. So it's a real honor, and thank you, Barbara. Just wanted to say that. So I grew up sleeping on a pull-out couch in my grandparents' living room. It wasn't a planned situation, but it did have a lasting impact on the relationships in my family and how I thought about myself growing up. That couch brought me a lot of shame. And it was mainly because I felt like the only kid in my neighborhood growing up in a situation like mine. I was about 1 year old when my sister, brother, and I came to live with my grandparents. It was an informal kinship care type of arrangement. My mother was with us, but my grandparents took charge. We all had to follow grandma's rules, my mom included. So my mom fell into more of a sister role. Now, my grandparents' main focus was providing food, shelter, and the basic physical needs for us kids. By this point, they were done with parenting. And I realize now that it must have been a lot for them, taking in small children and relearning all that parenting stuff. As an adult, I know they did their best. And I know they struggled with trying to meet our emotional needs. But as a kid, It totally sucks. So my sister, who was the oldest of us 3 kids, stepped into that emotional caretaking role. I remember she was as young as 10 when she began raising me and my brother. She took on that maternal role so much that she basically was mom to us. I can still picture her. Whenever my brother and I would fight, she would separate us and say, "All right, you two, break it up." When I was in college, I was constantly overwhelmed and stressed out. And like a mom, my sister would call me every day to check on me because she realized that I needed that maternal emotional support. She was the reason I did not drop out of college. Looking back, we all eventually found our family dynamic groove. Grandma was the matriarch. My mother was like our sister. And my sister was the heart of our little family unit. When my sister had kids, I became an aunt, though I also felt like an older sister to them. Then I became a second mother to them when I started to help my sister take care of them. So my niece, depending on my role, took to calling me either auntie, mommy, or sister. And sometimes she would call me all 3 at once, auntie, mommy, sister. So that was like our little joke. And then I'd call her niece, daughter, sister. And then her brother, I would call him my nephew, brother, son. It's a bit confusing, right? For me too. Sometimes when I'm supporting my sister with the kids, I have to stop and think, who am I in this scenario? Am I the sister? Do I have to take a step back from it? Am I the aunt? Or am I the mom? I just had a situation where my sister really needed me to just listen and be there for her as a sister. And I just wasn't getting it. I kept seeing her in her maternal role, and I was being her daughter, thinking, what do you want from me? You're my mom. And she was like, no, I need you to be my sister right now. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm glad she was able to voice that and that I was able to switch between these different family roles. Now, you might have heard of code switching when you speak one way at home with your family and friends and another when you're out in the world. In kinship families, we need to code switch, or rather role switch, since we have multiple roles and relationships within our families. You know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, in kinship families, there are less people in the village, but they take on more roles. I sometimes wonder if only my family had known about the coalition when I was sleeping on that couch. Maybe I would have connected more with others who grew up like me in kinship care. Maybe I would have laughed more about our role-switching family dynamics. And maybe I would have felt less alone and felt less shame. Sometimes life can feel so dysfunctional, but having the support, connecting with others, and not feeling alone, that's what helps. That's what's meaningful. I guess you can say I'm a success story in the kinship world. All my siblings are. We grew up feeling like we were in poverty, and today we have our own homes, we have great communication, and we still support each other. But I don't want to say we are a success story. The real truth is we made it work. Yes, life is messy, but I can tell you exactly who I am. I am auntie, sister, daughter, mommy. Thank you. And I just want to share that all these different roles, switching between all these different roles, I appreciate all of them. Thank you.
Yay! Up next is Trudy Kent. And now Trudy is the director of the Coalition's post-adoption program and an adoptive mom. And she's going to tell us about the time she thought she knew everything about adoption. Let's see how that went. Here's Trudy with her story. I got this. Come on up here.
I want to thank Barbara and Pat for allowing me this honor to speak about my story. So thank you. It is 2012, and we were sitting in a MAP class training, finding out what it takes to become a foster parent. MAP stands for Model Approach to Partnership in Parenting. It was all about building positive relationship with kids. As we were sitting listening to the facilitator, my husband and I kept nudging and whispering to each other, OMG, how hard can this be? We are social workers and trained MAP facilitators. We got this. We could teach this class. Then a year later, I got a call from a caseworker. She said, Trudy, are you sitting down? I said, okay. Trudy, there is a 2-day-old baby in the hospital. You need to pick her up tomorrow. I was so shocked and speechless. And somehow I found myself at my husband's office telling him, our dreams have come true. We got a newborn baby. Then in the next moment, we were in Target buying everything in sight. Car seat, diapers, pacifiers, onesie. My husband was like, do we need to buy a roly-poly stacking toys? Sure, why not? We grabbed everything without thinking twice. I was caught up in the joy. We were so full of excitement. We had sleepless night, but we did not feel tired at all. The next morning, we got to the hospital very early. The nurse called our names and rolled out a beautiful brown-eyed baby girl. She was delicious. My heart was melting. The baby wasn't sleeping. She was so alert. She looked at me, she looked at both of us. Then the nurse placed the baby in my arms and told me her name. Her mom named her after a Disney princess. I thought, how fitting. She was a beautiful princess. Then suddenly, reality hits. She wasn't my princess. Her mom already named her. And for a nagging split second, I wish I paid attention in math class. Then soon after, reality hit again. When a 17-month-old baby was placed in our home. She didn't walk, talk, or communicate at all. She cried for days on end. She wouldn't allow me to change her diapers, feed her, bathe her, or cuddle her. Only my husband could. Intellectually, I got it. Baby was bonded with her mom and didn't have a father figure. So it made sense that she quickly attached to my husband. I got it intellectually, but emotionally, it killed me. I felt like a failure. What's worse, I felt like my baby hated me. I called the caseworker because I thought she could help. I thought she would give me advice, connect me with other foster parents, and assure me that I wasn't the only parent that felt this way. So I confide everything that was going on with the baby, how I felt I wasn't connecting. I was exhausted and a bit depressed. Then the Then the caseworker gave me a bit of advice. Well, we could remove the baby if you're feeling too overwhelmed. I was so shocked. Oh no, I said, no, 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 no. I will push through. I'm fine. And I hung up the phone. So now I was home with two baby girls, one who I felt hated me. I was lonely, depressed, had no one to confide in, and no answers. I was a horrible parent. The horribleness stayed with me. It stayed over days, weeks, months, and years. I began learning terms like special needs, early intervention. It was a humbling experience. Then in 2017, an amazing opportunity changed my life. I got a job at the coalition. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people who knew so much about adoption. And I realized again, I didn't do enough in that damn MAP class. And I didn't do my own research, adoption research. But you know what? I got a do-over, a life-changing do-over. All the staff had to be trained in reframing parenting, a therapeutic parenting workshop. This is where I learned about Block trust and Block care, and it shifted my world. Basically, Block trust is when a child goes through lots of trauma and lacks the experience to trust their caregivers or bond with them. Block care is when the caregivers lack the ability to bond or connect with their child. So here I was sitting in reframing class, finally understanding why my 17-month-old little girl wasn't attaching to me and why I wasn't attaching to her. You bet I paid attention this time around. I wanted to cry. It was nice knowing I wasn't crazy. There was an answer. The coalition is an amazing community of individuals. I'm not just saying that because I work there. It's not just a job. It is an environment, it's a supportive environment. I don't feel uncomfortable sharing when my 5-year-old says, I hate you. I know I'm not alone. I know I could get through this. Because there is always someone at the coalition to lift me up. Whenever I get a flashback of that long ago MAP class, me not doing my homework, me thinking I got this, I just shake my head and laugh to myself. I didn't realize the depth of sacrifice it would take to parent a child experiencing foster care. All the long sleepless nights, the internal struggles, being able to accept and face what your child went through and is going through. To meet your babies where they're at is an experience and a love so deep that I would give my life to protect them. Now I know I'm a good parent. Thank you.
Oh my God. Stop making me cry. Stop it. You know how sometimes in life you hear a piece of information that changes everything? Well, that's what happened to our next storyteller, John Kirkman. Here's John. John, are you ready to go? To share what he's learned in his story, Secret Dakota Ring. Here he is.
Hello. I'm going to share something I learned from the coalition. Something that I wish I'd known much, much earlier. It was a secret to me. Now it's an insight that has changed my life. It's like I'm now in possession of the secret Dakota ring for human beings. The secret involves the strong need for people to express their inner life force. I am John. I'm a family support specialist at the coalition and an adoptive dad. My moment of clarity to unlocking the mystery of the human race came when I was taking the coalition's Reframing Parenting class. This class focuses on attachment, attunement, and trust. At its heart, it's really about building connection between parents and children who have experienced trauma. But these rules apply to everybody else too. It was then I learned how broken connections, emotional and physical, can and often lead to intense emotional dysregulation. In other words, feeling disconnected from others can cause powerful emotional impact. It was an association I never made before. And it made me realize perhaps why I had emotional dysregulation my entire life, too often as anger and rage. I grew up in a household of opposites and extremes. My parents were both wonderful and terrible. I felt loved and nurtured one day, abused and rejected the next. Many days I wish I had run away. When I was 11, my parents got divorced. It affected me in a profound way. I fell apart. I experienced severe grief and deep depression. As a kid, I never really understood why I was feeling the way I was feeling. Why was I in so much pain? Why was I so intensely and desperately angry? As I got older, I never addressed these feelings. I downplayed it. I rationalized it. And I just filed it away. I didn't have to understand these emotions until I adopted my daughter. She was 12 when we brought her home. And without going into much detail, my daughter had experienced severe deprivations in her young life through no fault of her own. The effect of those past traumas left her with intense emotional dysregulation, often expressed as anger and rage. And I recognized that rage from within my own experience. That was a singular moment of clarity for me. My childhood was full of trauma, lack of connection, intense pain. How did that manifest in me? Anger and rage. This kind of emotional response is a deeply rooted human reaction. It's our basic life force struggling to live. And it's not a choice. It has to come out. So here's the lesson. Where there is broken attachment, one common result is intense negative feelings. But here's the other side of this golden lesson. The opposite is also true. When people are connected, they feel safe. They feel seen. They feel joy. and their life gains meaning. So, what do we do with this information? We act with compassion and understanding. I learned this from the coalition too. Connection and having compassion is especially important in adoption. Yet, it goes far beyond our adoption community. It goes out to the world at large. With every person we meet, with every interaction we have, big or small, because in the end, connection is everything. I want to thank the coalition for giving me the secret. One thing I appreciate about storytelling is being able to pass it along to a captive audience. I hope this secret decoder ring makes a difference in your life too. And I hope you share it with others. Thank you.
Well done. Wow. As we have heard, that adoption often comes with very unique challenges. And our next storyteller, Felix, Felix Marquez, is going to share how he dealt with those challenges. Felix is a family support specialist and an adoptive dad. And here he is with his story, I Can't Fix This. Felix? There he is.
So 5 years ago, I got roped into attending the coalition's reframing parenting workshop. It's a series of about 6 sessions, about 3 hours each, designed to support and assist parents who are caring for non-biological children who have been, placed in our care. So I'm here at this workshop, and I'm with 7 or 8 other parents who, like me, were either adoptive or kinship. And there was a woman who was sharing, a situation that she was going through with her son. And, something she said made me ask her, how old is your child? And she said, 32. 32. I mean, really? 32? Thankfully, I didn't say it out loud. I just assumed that, like me, all the other parents had young children at home too, toddlers, kindergartners, middle-aged school kids, etc. But 32, I was shocked. All I could think of was, this person is in the same class with me, talking about their 32-year-old son. Is this what the rest of my life is going to be like? And here I thought I understood what trauma was about. I mean, I took all the classes, I did the MAP class and the different workshops offered through DSS, Agape, even a few TBRI sessions. Plus I'm an operations guy, I'm logistics. I solve problems. That's what I do, and here I am in a class with a parent of a 32-year-old, I mean, what problems could this child have who's no longer a child, and at 32 as a parent, you're still dealing with this? Perhaps this is a good time to tell you a little bit about my wife, Laura. We got married later in life, in our late 30s, and we're both Catholic. Both of us come from big families, and both of us knew we wanted to have kids, and we had lots of experience, taking care of kids. I had my nieces and nephew, I was the funkle, the fun uncle, I'd spoil them, take them out, ball games, movies, bowling, you name it. It was great. And my wife, she's the oldest of 6. So, growing up, she, of course, had to take care and look after her siblings. So, with this, combined with all the classes and the workshops and that we attended, we felt more than prepared to adopt. We went the foster to adoption route. And before we knew it, we began fostering a sibling group, ages 2, 6, and 8. And about a year or so later, their newborn sister. So, we got the full spectrum. So my older son, he was about 9 years old at the time. He loves animals. He'd tell you anything about any animal that you've ever seen or heard about. Tigers, elephants, reptiles, dinosaurs, marine animals. It doesn't matter. He knows. When he first came to us, I thought it was a little peculiar because, he'd watch Animal Planet rather than cartoons. I mean, that was him. And to add to that, he had a collection of about 100 little figurines of all kinds of animals. So anyway, he had a shark, and he comes to me one day and he says, "Daddy, have you seen my shark?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you were just playing with him a little while ago." And he's like, "No, I'm looking for my blue shark." And I went, "Yeah, I saw you playing with the blue shark too. Your blue shark was chasing the other shark. They were having like a little shark attack, and he goes, no, that's my big blue shark. I'm looking for my little blue shark, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. I don't know. I think you had the little blue shark there too, but I haven't seen it." And he's like, "It's okay. It's all right. I'm going to go look for it." And he does for like 2.5 hours, and then he comes out of his room saying, look, Daddy, look, I found my shark. I found my shark. And I'm like, "That's great. That's great. That's fantastic." And then he puts the shark down on the coffee table in front of me. He leaves it there and goes back to his room. And he's been looking for this little blue shark for 2.5 hours. And he doesn't take it with him. I looked at my wife and I'm like, what did I just miss? What I missed was the trauma. You probably missed it too. My son and my oldest daughter, both of them suffered trauma when they were taken away from their birth mom. And then they were in foster care and for a number of years before my wife and I came into the picture. We were able to adopt them after fostering them for about 3 years. The process took obscenely long. Being older, they remembered more than their younger siblings. They lost a lot, all of them. My son had been moved at least 3 times prior to coming to us. And every time he moved, the people mover, that's what you call them, that's what they teach her in math class, comes and gives them a bag and tells them, imagine this, throwing in some possessions, some toys, some clothes, and then you go. And you don't know when you're coming back or if you're coming back. With each move, my son lost some stuff. With each move, something is lost. He needed to find that shark. He didn't want to lose anything more. This was his attachment disorder. And at this time, he had already been living with us for years. We weren't like a new placement or anything. It was his trauma showing its face again. That's why it was important enough for him to take 2.5 hours out of his life to find that shark. 100+ animal toys, including a lot of other sharks that he had, but he had to stop everything and find that shark. Then he just leaves it there on the coffee table. He left it because he felt good. He found a shark. He didn't lose something else. He was with us for 4 years and still dealing, with loss. When the parents spoke about the 32-year-old son, this is what I thought about, the shark incident with my son. Trauma is for life. I can expect trauma to be around for my son, for all my kids, for the rest of their lives. This is one of the things that the coalition, the workshops, the classes, the support groups has tried to bang into my head time and time again. And that realization finally came through during that workshop. I could be the smartest guy in the world, but I can't fix this. And that's okay. Because I can continue to learn, to do the work, to be there for them. This is what life is all about. Celebrating the wins, like finding that shark. And when the shark doesn't show up, it's about faith and family, support and understanding. It's about telling him how much I love him. He's my son, no matter how old he is. Thank you.
Great. Now I'm crying and I have chills. Fantastic. All right, we have one more incredible story for you this evening. It is from Paquita Williams, and Paquita is an adoptive mom. And I don't know, they have a saying that young kids around the house, keeps you young. And there is no better example than Paquita. Here she is with her story called Rockin' and Rollin'. Come on up here, Paquita.
Wow. Okay. I want to cry. Good evening. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to share a little bit of myself with you. My name is Paquita Williams, and I've always wanted to be a mom. I always had a need to take care of someone, to be there. All through my 20s, I want 20s, 30s, 40s, so we're getting up there. I was always there for adults, and it never worked out. Then when I turned 50, one of my girlfriends said, let's help someone that can't help themselves. Let's become foster parents. Let's become foster moms. So I had no clue. I never thought I could be a foster mother. I thought to be a foster parent, you'd have to have the whole family dynamic in place. But okay, maybe I'm wrong. So I went to an agency and I told the woman, I want to be a foster parent. I want to be a foster mom. I said, I'm not married. She said, that's okay. I said, ain't nobody looking to marry me. She said, that's fine. She said, that's fine. I said, kids ain't gonna have no daddy. She said, that's okay. She said, Miss Williams, all you need is space and love. And I said, I got a lot of that. I always wanted to be a mom. So I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Far Rockaway. And like I said, I knew deep down inside, I always wanted to be a mom. So I started taking the classes, the workshops, the whole thing. And about a year later, in August of 2009, my home became a certified foster home. And soon after that, I got my first call about a possible placement. Now, these are some things that I said up front all through my training. I don't want a baby because I had to be to work at 5:30, not get ready. I had to be at work at 5:30 in the morning. So I said, okay, maybe not a newborn, but someone like an 18-month-old where you say, oh, it's time to lay down, and the baby will know, okay, I'm going to lay down. 18-month-old, right? So, but I didn't want a newborn, I'm not every 3 hours. I'm not doing that, a newborn, no. And there was no way I wanted a boy. I wanted a girl because, you know, you could dress the girl up in all the different outfits, matching bobos, you know, all of that, right? So, and I didn't want a sick baby because I didn't want to get attached to a baby and chances it might pass away. So I get this call. Oh, Miss Williams, I have a baby boy. He's almost 2 months old. What? All the things I didn't want. But I kept saying, okay, okay. She told me about mom's health issues. And I'm like, okay, okay. And she said he was adoptable. You know, I never said anything about adopting a baby. I never thought about adopting a baby. Again, I had no husband, no girlfriend, no puppy, and I had a full-time job. And I was old. I was 51. I was 51. But the biggest, maybe the biggest reason I thought I couldn't adopt was because I thought I couldn't love someone else's child. You know, I could never have been so wrong. But even still, thinking about that, thinking that way, I said to her, okay, okay. When I got off the phone, I was like, oh my God, I'm looking around the room. Oh my God, all the things I didn't want. I was nervous. I was hyperventilating. It was midday. I was drinking coffee. I was like, who said this? Because it's all the things I did not want. And I'm saying, So I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to be to work at 5:30 in the morning. I was so nervous. I'm breathing hard. Then a calmness came over me. I could feel it. I could feel it from my head to my toe, all over my body like a web. And I began to get calm. And I looked up and I said, okay, God, I guess we can do this. I guess we can do this. Oh, then I thought a baby boy, adoptable. Now I want to tell you, I have 4 brothers. I couldn't think about what one boy's name, what John, Joe, Jimmy, not one name. Then I heard a voice. I heard a voice. It said, Elijah. I looked up. Elijah. I said, that's a nice name. I said, God, if I get that baby and I adopt him, I'm naming him Elijah, right? Well, I got the call back. He said, oh, Miss Williams, you got the baby. You got the baby. I started hyperventilating again, you know, but I said, okay. I said, okay, not that it mattered. Not that it mattered. I said, tell me a little bit about him, because I didn't know if he was black, white, polka dotted, or spotted. You know, I didn't know anything. She said, he's an Afro-American baby boy. I said, okay. She went on to talk about the mom and then more about the baby. And I kept saying, okay, okay. Then I said, well, what do you call him? What's his name? What do you call him? She said, his name is Elijah. Oh, I started crying. You know, I got to tell this. I started crying. I'm not religious. I'm not a religious person. I'm spiritual. I do believe in a power. No name. I just believe in a force. I raised my hands and I fell to my knees. I started crying and I said, I hear you, God. I hear you. You know, it still brings chills through me. It still brings chills through me. So I'm crying hysterically. She said, oh, Miss Williams, calm down, you know, because I'm crying. And she said, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. That's when I came to my senses. I came to my senses, you know, because you see, God said Elijah's coming. God said Elijah's coming, you know, so I said to her, I'm fine. bring me my baby. All the things I said I didn't want. I didn't want a newborn. I didn't want a baby. I couldn't love someone else's child. All of those things. Well, I knew when I saw him, I wanted to cry. I was like, oh God, this is my baby. This is my baby. Not you, Pat. Oh, so that's my baby when I saw him. So 2 years later, I adopted Elijah, and I continued to be a foster parent. I fostered teenage girls because I couldn't fathom a young girl without a mom. One of my girls, she's still in my life today. She's 29. She has 2 children, a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. I'm the only Nana that they know. The only Nana. So the 11-year-old said, Nana, can I stay with you this summer? The whole summer. So of course, what Nana gonna say? So I'm like, yes, you can. So she stayed with me this past summer. School was out like June 28th. She was there June 9th, 29th. School started the 8th of September. She went home the 7th of September. I have to share that a little with you. So, I want to share that all of this stuff didn't come overnight, a lot of it came through doing workshops with the coalition. I was at a workshop once and I'm pouring my heart out about the children, how I'm not getting through. There's something I'm not doing right. They said to me, no, Paquita, you're doing fine. They said, the children are like pre-filled pens. They are who they are with their own DNA. I never thought about that. Like, pre-filled pens with their own DNA. I'm like, oh, okay. They said, you can just guide them. And that brought me peace, so just a lot of things. The coalition has enlightened me so much. My whole outlook on children have changed because at times, I'm an old mom. I'm an older mom. I'm 65. I should be smoking weed, right? I should be smoking weed, but I'm rocking and rolling in a different way, At 65, I'm a PTA mom, and I'm about to adopt my 4th child. I think it's going to really be my last, but my 4th child, At times, my thinking is when, I was working and I'm like, when I retire, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to smoke some weed. And I'm going to just do me. They say, do me. I'm going to just do me. I want you to know I'm doing me. I'm doing me. I get up and keep it moving. My children, we do all types of things, the museums, the parks, the zoo, the museum, the library, the water slides. I want to sit down somewhere and take a nap. I want to take a nap, and sometimes even at the park, I'll sit down and take a nap. Then I wake up and I look and I see my children, I see my children. I'm like, I'm a mom. I'm an auntie. I got one that say, oh, Aunt Paquita. She called me Aunt Paquita. The other kids call me Nana. I'm a mom. I'm an auntie. I'm a Nana. I don't know. I didn't know it would be possible because I want to share that I couldn't have my own children. So I didn't know this was possible, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm happy. And I want to thank you for listening. That's it. Thank you.
I'm gonna bring everybody up. That is our show. I want to bring up our storytellers and just give them all the love they deserve. Oh my God. Come on up, everybody. I'm out of the way.
All right. Oh, there we go. Thank you all so much. This was amazing. Before we dismiss for the evening, we just wanted to come up and say something. Kathy.
Hi, everybody. We really want to thank the storytellers who were just so amazing tonight. But there's also a bunch of other people to thank. Our board members who have really come out, our host committee. This was our first host committee. Everybody really worked hard to make this an incredible event. Who else are we thanking here?
Oh my goodness, all of our sponsors. So please have some, I mean, we have so much food. A lot of this was donated from our generous sponsors. The florals are from Milan Flowers. Like, you know, we just have had so much brought to us from you all, and we're so grateful that you're here. Please use the step and repeat, take some pictures, post them on social media, #AFFCNY, please.
Right.
You know.
The other thing is on the program, there's a little, this is the ploy to give. If you know anybody who wants to donate, or if you want to make an additional donation, the proceeds from tonight are going to start a legal advocacy, excuse me, program for kinship, foster, and adoptive families. So we're taking all donations. It looks like that program is going to be a reality. So we're very excited about that. So thank you so much for coming, because I know that everybody is called a lot of different directions these days, and you have places to be. I'm so glad you were here to share it this evening with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.